Russian opposition politician Alexei Navalny has been taken into custody for 30 days, pending further court hearings. Navalny returned from Germany on Saturday and was detained at the airport. Russian authorities want Navalny to complete a 3.5-year suspended sentence. He returned to the country 5 months after he was almost killed in a nerve agent attack, which he blamed on Russian authorities. Moscow, though, denied any role in the poisoning.
Russian state prosecutors have jailed Alexei Navalny for 30 days as the Kremlin critic appeared in front of a hearing he labelled as, quote, the highest degree of lawlessness on Monday. Navalny was detained the previous evening at a Moscow airport when flying home for the first time since he was poisoned last summer. In a video posted on social media from inside the police station, Navalny also hit out at President Vladimir Putin.
I've seen the mockery of justice a lot of times, but it looks like the old man in his bunker is so scared of everything that the criminal procedures code has been blatantly torn up and thrown into the garbage. The thing which is happening here is simply impossible. This is the highest degree of lawlessness.
Upon the announcement of Navalny's remand in pre-trial detention, he urged the people to take to the streets. Around 200 of his supporters gathered outside the police station in temperatures of -18 degrees Celsius and demanded he be set free. The foreign ministers of Germany, Britain, France and Italy had earlier called for Navalny's release, while the UN's Human Rights Office said it was deeply troubled by his arrest. One of US President-elect Joe Biden's top aides, Jake Sullivan, also joined the calls for Moscow to free Navalny. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov brushed off any criticism of the actions damaging Russia's image, saying the country isn't just, quote, young ladies going to a ball.
You can feel the joy of their carbon copy comments. Joy because it apparently helps the Western politicians to think that they can now distract their citizens from the deepest crisis their liberal system has found itself in.
The head of Cinema for Peace, the activist group that brought Alexei Navalny to Germany for life-saving treatment after his poisoning, also has spoken out. Jaka Bezilj simply called it a crime that Russia had detained the Kremlin critic on his return to Russia.
Theresa Fallon is the director of the Centre for Europe-Asia-Russia Studies, CREAS, Brussels think tank. She joins me now via Skype. Thanks so much indeed for joining us and welcome to the programme. I suppose Navalny's arrest at the airport was predicted and he probably expected it as well.
Yes, he's a very brave man, and I think that, of course, he knew this was expected, and they even had to move the plane to another airport because many supporters were there waiting for him. So in order not to show such a, have photographers showing such a strong support for his return. And then before he even got past passport control, he was arrested or he's taken in by police officers.
Why is the Kremlin so determined to quiet his voice? It's almost as if he's quite feared by the administration there.
Navalny is in the opposition, and as we know, President Putin has had his tenure lengthened for another 16 years, so he'll be in power until 2036. He would be about 83 by then. Will he stay in power that long? It remains to be seen. But this is the key question about the regime. How do they find someone to replace Putin? And so the fact that an opposition member like Navalny, who doesn't really have a great deal of support, but it is growing because people are becoming disgruntled with the economy, overall, Putin and his inner circle control so many levers of power. But the fact that someone like Navalny, who he's been attacked with acid, he has also, as we know, had this incredible, you couldn't write about this for a movie script. It would seem almost too incredible about his underpants being filled with this type of Novichok agent, which poisoned him, as we all know, and then his recuperation in Germany. So maybe they thought, okay, he survived, he's in Germany, and he won't come back. But he did come back, and I think more people in Russia may support him now because he's, it seems like such a brave move. But on the other hand, if he had stayed in Germany, perhaps, we know from other people that the Skripal case in the UK, for example, he was poisoned with Novichok as well. So wherever he would go, he would not really be in peace. So I think it was very brave to return, but he was damned if he didn't go back and damned if he did. So now there is a growing issue. But one of the key issues now is Germany, because of the economic issue of the Nord Stream pipeline, Nord Stream Pipeline 2, which has been very controversial. And this could be a lever, because if, President Putin maybe doesn't mind just sticking him into prison and not following rule of law issues, but the West has really paid attention, and especially because Navalny has been in a German hospital for the last 5 months, and not 3 other laboratories in Europe also confirmed that it was a Novichok agent. So they are concerned about how he will be treated. And this is a lever of economic power over Russia, because the U.S. is not in favor of the Nord Stream 2, Germany is, but we've seen today Lithuania, the Baltic states, Estonia, Lithuania, and Poland, including Poland, say we should, stop Nord Stream 2 as a way to convince Russia that they should treat Navalny more fairly. But he's going to be in prison for the next 30 days, and then we'll see what delicate balancing act the Putin administration will follow in this case.
How did Navalny first get into the crosshairs of President Putin and his government? Was that investigative report on corruption, or was it long before that?
Well, what's very interesting about him is that the Putin administration is like he's Voldemort. They cannot even mention his name, because they feel that if they even talk about him, that gives him more power and prestige. So there's all sorts of, now he's called the patient. But we see this kind of language used also by the Kremlin, or Navalny calling, as you noted in your program, the old man in the bunker. So there's this kind of repartee going back and forth. But he was a blogger, and he's very interested in corruption issues. And so as people, even with a passing interest in Russia, are familiar with kind of this kleptocracy that's going on there, and the middle class is getting a bit fed up with all of this. So there is growing support for someone like Navalny. And this is the problem with the economy. President Putin has really been has had a lot of luck with high oil prices, but now we have not only the COVID-19 pandemic, we also have low energy prices, and time is ticking away. And so the economy does not look like it's doing very well. And as some analysts have said, this is what happens when you have the security forces in charge. They're good at operations abroad and things like that, but actually growing the economy and managing the economy is something that is really problematic. So Russia is really feeling the pressure now. The governing structures are really feeling the pressure of lack of growth in the economy, and people are becoming disgruntled. So we know that Navalny has called for protests on Saturday. It's very cold in Russia. I will be curious to see how many people turn out. That will be a real barometer of how much support he does have now.
So back 2017, tens of thousands of people took to the streets and protested. And as you say, it could be that this might be a barometer. Is this what Putin fears, that if there's a growing movement of discontent? We're in the middle of COVID-19, so gatherings, I guess, perhaps restricted. It might be a problem to get the same kind of numbers as 2017.
Yes, I think so. I think even the public are concerned that they'll probably be wearing masks. But I think that, from a very minor opponent, this might give him more traction. But because it is a democracy, so they always need someone in opposition, but they want someone in opposition that they can trust. And there was a story or an actual fact of a region outside of Moscow, and they needed an opposition. They didn't want to have just run up unopposed, so they nominated a cleaning woman and who had no political experience whatsoever, and she won by a landslide. So this kind of demonstrated how the public is really getting frustrated, and largely because of the economy. So and disgruntlement with the kleptocracy of the elites in Russia. So this will be there's a certain time frame that this can go on for, and Putin has been in power for a long time. So although he's trying to delegate more, there's like Putin makes certain decisions and then the ring around Putin makes other decisions. It seems that the economy is not their strength right now.
Hollywood over the years has portrayed Russia, you know, as, and the KGB as, you know, this kind of dark place. And I just wonder, in the modern day, you still hear these stories of poisoning and putting poison in people's underwear and that kind of thing. But is it fair to say that Vladimir Putin's wiggle room is much less in modern times, especially with social media, and that more and more of the world is able to see what's going on in Russia than ever before?
Well, that's an excellent point that you brought up about social media, because most of the media in Russia is controlled by the government. And so social media is an area that they have more difficulty controlling. And so since Navalny actually was a blogger, he was able to reach more people. And I think that you know, Russia has a lot of nuclear weapons. It's still a great power, but they're a power that is aging fast. They have a problem with population size, and they also have big concerns about China on their border. Now, there's this kind of interesting relationship. We call it friends with benefits, or Chinusia, this kind of China-Russia, or a marriage of convenience, but even a marriage of convenience can give children. So Putin's future, it's really hard to determine. It's very unclear how things will turn out. We saw the protests in Belarus this summer, and also Belarus is one of the key nodes on China's Belt and Road Initiative, and I think 96% of the rail traffic goes through Belarus. So you see this kind of slow erosion of Russia's influence in areas where they had great influence in the past, and even in Central and Eastern Europe. So you're getting more of China's influence. So I think Russia has President Putin has a lot on his plate. He has a lot of challenges ahead, and the economy, as long as the oil price is remaining low, he doesn't have that much wiggle room. I agree with you.
Is the climate now, even though the focus is on Navalny, is there fertile ground now for other Navalnys to step forward now?
That's a very good question. I think that young people will be emboldened by this, perhaps. And I think that, of course, if you don't like it, you can always leave Russia. But I think that there's kind of a bit of an apathy. Some people feel that things can change. This is how it is. I have just a certain limit of where I can go, what I can do economically, unless I join this very elite club, which is so difficult to get into. So maybe that is what Navalny's trying to do, trying to inspire another generation. He's still relatively young. He's 44. And, you know, as long as he's around, he can try to inspire others. And I think that's what this regime fears the most with his return.
Why is, let's assume that this nerve agent was perhaps, I mean, the authorities have denied they had anything to do with it, but it has all the fingerprints of perhaps some authorities getting involved. Why is it that Russia is allowed to get away with these kinds of things time after time?
Well, they're not really getting away with it because of the examinations by various labs. There have been sanctions. Europe sanctioned people. And even Navalny taken into prison, he gave a list of 8 people that he recommended be sanctioned. So before he expected to be taken into prison, and he gave a list of who he thought should be sanctioned. So instead of affecting all of the Russian people who are already suffering terribly under specific economic sanctions, they're targeted sanctions on part of the ruling elite, and which won't allow them to travel or have overseas bank accounts and things like that. So they're not targeted at the general population, but really at the ruling clique.
All right. Theresa Fallon, that's where we'll leave it. Thank you so much indeed for joining us, and your insights greatly appreciated on the program. Thank you so much.
It's a real honor. Thank you.
All right, that's Theresa Fallon speaking to us from Brussels. Yeah, Alexei Navalny back in Russia, but back in jail as well. We'll keep a track on that story for you.